Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Mishnah Yomi continues in Orlah. We are finishing the second parak today and beginning the third parak, Bezrat Hashem. So we are on Mishnah Yud Zayin, Mishnah 17 in the second parak, basar, kodshe, kodshim, a piece of meat that was the holy of holies. As we mentioned in yesterday's limud, this is a chatat or an asham where the kohanim can eat some of this meat. And Orlah is also kodshe, kodshim, as we noted, but no one eats that except the mizbeach. So this time, this was mixed with basar kodshim kalim, which is the less holy of holies. So for karbanot, this refers to things like a pesach, or a toda, or a shlamim. Now, meat from these offerings, certain parts of these offerings, is eaten by non-kohanim, but only when they're tehorim, which, by the way, Rabotai, is why we need that para aduma, so we can perform the ritual of para aduma, make the mechatat, and become purified from corpse tuma and eat our kodshe kolim in the Beit HaMikdash b'mheira v'yameinu. So what's going on is this, a piece of kodshe kodshim, a piece of kodshe kolim, and it was nitbashlu im basar taavah, and it was cooked together with basar taavah, which literally means the meat of desiring, the meat you desire, which really refers to chulin, regular old meat. But the psukim that talk about eating meat outside of the Mishkan or outside of Yerushalayim, they refer to it as basar taavah when you'll have a taavah, like lashon b'teavon. B'teavon is the same lashon of basar taavah. Like when you desire to eat meat, you'll go ahead and eat meat outside of the temple. Once the Jewish people get to Eretz Yisrael, when we were in the Midbar, the 40 years in the Midbar, the only way to eat meat, actual flesh, actual meat, was in the temple. Now, when Hashem sent the Slav, the quail, that's not a species that can go to the Mishkan or the temple, so that was permitted to eat outside the Mishkan as basar taavah. And it's worth looking, Rabotai, in Bahalotecha, in Bamidbar, chapter 11, when the people are complaining that they want meat, and Moshe is talking to Hashem. Moshe says, could we possibly slaughter enough cattle to feed everyone? And this was not a rhetorical question, because at that time, there were not very many Kohanim, and not a lot of opportunity in the Mishkan to, process. It wasn't a Schlochthaus, Rabbi Say. It wasn't didn't have the volume capability to process meat for every single person, and they would have to eat meat, actual fleishigs of, cows, goats, and sheep would have to go through the Mishkan to be eaten. So Moshe was not asking a rhetorical question. Would it be possible to process all these animals in the Mishkan? So Hashem Davka sent a piece of meat, bird, that did not have to go to the Mishkan. Anyway, that's basar taavah, which was permitted outside of the temple, not as a carbon, once we got to Eretz Yisrael. So the din here is asur l'tameim. It's forbidden to Jews who are tameh. Now, the reason here, again, is both kodshe kodshim and kodshim kalim are not allowed to people who are tameh. Now, kodshe kodshim is eaten by kohanim, but only when they're tahurim. And kodshe kodshim, the parts that can be eaten by Yisraelim, is also only when they're tahurim. So this mixture, even though the Bartner explains, again, like in Mishnah 16, there's enough chulin here, there's enough basar taavah, there's enough regular meat to be mevatel one of these pieces of meat. So we can treat this mixture that was cooked together, this cholent, as if the kodshe kodshim is batel, but the kodshe kalim is still extant. So people who are tmeim can't eat it, but tahorim can. As it says, mutter l'tahorim. And it's, of course, it's a musar based on Mesilat Yesharim. As you purify yourself and you rise in levels of avodat Hashem, you might think that you're closing doors, certain things you can't do or don't want to look at or think about, but you're actually opening more doors to more spiritual possibilities in your life. Let's move on to the third parak in Orlah. Chapter 3, Mishnah number 1, Beged. You have a garment, shetziva'o, that you dyed it. It's dyed in the wall now. Beklipe Orlah, using shells of Orlah. You can imagine you wanted a nice bright red, so they used pomegranate husks and prepared a dye out of these, but they were Orlah pomegranates. Yedolek, so the din is you have to burn up the garment. Again, kilaya kerem and Orlah are asar behana. You can't have any enjoyment from them, not just not eating them, but even wearing them as clothing. Nit'arif bechirim. He made a shirt that was dyed in the wool here with Orlah, and it was mixed up with a bunch of other shirts, and they're all, the same color. They're not distinguishable. Kulam yidalaiku. Rabbi Meir says you got to burn all of them. Now, the reason you can't be batel, even if you have 200 shirts, 201 shirts, if you add the Orlah shirt, is because he says once it's sewn into a beged, once it's prepared as a garment, it is hashuv. It is important, and something that's hashuv, important, is not batal even in 1,000. So Rabbi Meir holds it's chashuv as a beged, and it's not batal. So if nebuch, the Orlah beged, is mixed up, you have to burn everything. Chachamim omrim yale be'echad metayim. The sages say it is batal in 201, as we've seen in the previous parak that Orlah and Kilai Karim themselves are batal in 201. The sages do not hold that a garment is a davar chashuv, an important item that is immune to being batal. They say only certain things that are listed in another Mishnah actually have that status. Whereas Rabbi Meir holds this is a davar limnot. It's something that you counted out, meaning when you go to the store and buy it, you don't buy a pound of shirts. You don't buy a gallon of shirts. You buy 1 shirt or 5 shirts if there's a sale. Since it's sold by the unit and not by weight or measure, then it is not batal according to Rabbi Meir. Shkoyach Rabosai Zai Gesund.